Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's call on logbooks and Blue Mountain RAM. My name is Drexel Rotroff. I'm in the marketing department here at Blue Mountain, and we are really excited to get these kicked off. This is one call in a series of calls we want to do this year to highlight features inside of Blue Mountain RAM. These calls are meant for customers specifically, and they're also meant to be very conversational. So we'll be hosting calls in a series this year, monthly, for 30 minutes long, and we'll try to keep it to 30 minutes. But in this call specifically, this focuses on logbooks. So we have a couple of people from Blue Mountain here on our end that are going to demo some features and hopefully ask some questions to our audience here. And we'll be able to collect some feedback from you as well. So before I turn it over here, I just want to note that these are really meant to be very conversational webinars. So there are a couple of ways we want to encourage interaction here. The first is raising your hand using the GoToWebinar hand raise. If you raise your hand and we see a raised hand, we'll unmute your phone and you'll be able to speak to the group. Again, this is a group of customers all across the country. We have some international customers online too. So we very much want to encourage you to speak up if you want to share something about logbooks or ask a question live on the phone. We encourage that. If you use the hand raise button, we can then unmute your phone. And then the second way you can, if you don't want to speak live on the phone, you're welcome to type a question into the question panel and GoToWebinar. And we'll again answer those as we go through this presentation today. All right. So with that said, I'm going to introduce a couple Blue Mountain people in the room here. We'll just go around the table.
Hello, everyone. We probably spoke in the past before with many of you, but my name is Matt Litzinger. I'm the Regional Sales Manager here at Blue Mountain, and I'm going to be presenting inside of RAM the logbook functionality that we have to offer as it is in RAM currently.
I'm Brad Shear. I'm a senior software developer here at Blue Mountain.
We'll come back to this again if you want to jump into the
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to go into and jump right into the application and show our logbook functionality. And as Drexel mentioned before, this is meant to be conversational. So please feel free to ask questions either during or after, anywhere in between, and we'll be sure to answer those for you. Okay, so when I log into RAM, and everyone should be familiar with the system, as it is you guys use it in your daily lives there at work. Now my version of RAM is up to date. It is the latest and greatest. However, you might be on a different version where certain things that you'll see in my version won't be in your version, obviously. So I just want to point that out. But I have my queries designed the way that I have it configured. And for logbook purposes, what I've done is I've created a query to help me as a supervisory role understand what logbooks that I want or need reviewed. And so you can create a query to help drive that knowledge and see, hey, what assets need have a logbook review. And so that's what this query is designed to show. Lo and behold, I have one here listed. So if I double click into that asset record, it's going to bring me to that record as you would in your RAM implementations now. And to access your logbooks for a given record, this is where you would find it. You would go to the asset record in order to get to the logbook itself. You go to the Actions menu, and you would select Open Logbook. So that's where you would find it and locate it. If you just want to add a logbook entry, you could simply click the Add Logbook Entry button. Otherwise, if you want to look at the actual book, you would click the book option instead. But you could still add entries from this menu, but certainly a quicker way to go about entering entries is through that other option. Well, I have two entries here, two log IDs. The one that needs reviewed, as you'll see, these flags are designed to help visualize or visually show what is needing reviewed or what has been reviewed for an entry. If I double click into this, you can have an exploded view of that entry with the fields that I have on this form are again to my specification, to my configuration, whereas your logbooks may happen to be very different in the field structures that you may want. This is very simplified for the demonstration purposes, but again, there are fields that are hidden that you could purpose for additional data capture, for whatever purposes that you may need. Okay, so I am reviewing this, and I'm going to say, yeah, this looks fine, and I'm going to apply a review. So to do that, there's a little checkbox in the top portion here, and I'm going to select this. And it's going to give me a little menu of this is what in that review. I'm going to select next, and I need to provide an electronic signature. Okay. So now once that is reviewed, it will actually come off of my reviewed list, my query in the background here. So if I refresh this, now that goes away. So whenever technicians need to go out there and write more logbooks, as they write them and need reviewed of them, they will appear here. And of course, notifications can be triggered based off of flags for needing review. That hasn't changed, and that happens in many other places in the system that you can have that. So if I go back to if I go to Technician's Workspace and I say all logbooks, so this is a query that I designed to show me all the logbooks that belong to equipment. So you would have one logbook per system, per asset, for your logbook functionality purposes. And you can go to any one of these and again locate that logbook, and add entries as you see fit. So to add an entry, again, you can go here, select New, and then enter a logbook entry. Just an example here. Start time. So you could have just a date format or a date timestamp format with these dates for logbook. As I type here, you're going to notice on the right side of this comment block, this description block, there's these numbers. Some of you may have these in your indentation, but this is to signify how many characters you have left in that description block. So just a little tip there. When I save, I'm required here to supply credentials for username and password. So now I've just entered the second log to the log book, which gives it a log ID of 2. If I wanted to edit this particular logbook entry, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up to make some changes to it. So if I wanted to change this from entering logbook to enter, so I made a change. What's going to happen is RAM in the logbook functionality will have versions. So these versions will appear over time as the log entries change. So that now, right now, this is log ID 2 with version 2. All those changes that do happen within the logbook will appear in the audit trail of the asset record that the logbook belongs to. Okay. Now, once you have your logbooks in your equipment and in your systems, I've gotten feedback in the past about how do I get this in maybe a paper format if I ever wanted to print it out. Well, as you guys know, or you have in your system probably are reports that are designed to show certain things. And logbooks are no different. You would certainly create a report to extract your logbook information out. And there's many formats you could possibly have and ways you could do it. The example that I have today to show is a logbook summary report. So with this given report, you can obviously have parameters at the top, given that you have your data set name or your site name. Include, if you want to have entries to be reviewed, do you want to include those reviewed entries or not, or do you want to include them all? If I say all here, from date. So how long ago do you want to look back to? You can do this as a time-based thing for your report. Just go a few months back. And perhaps maybe you want to know a particular asset, or maybe all of them, as they are with your logbook entry. So I'm just going to say all. So it's going to group these together with the equipment under question for whatever equipment has logbooks for one. And it kind of gives you a summary of those logbook entries. You can get a little more creative with this. So maybe you want to know, you want to tie this in with all the work history along with the logbooks. I know that was something we've gotten a lot of feedback in the past about, is I want reports to show me all the work that was done in a timeline with my logbook entries. So you get a full picture of logbooks plus history of work that was done on a piece of equipment to give you that timeline of events. And that's something a report can provide you. If the data is in RAM, we can pull it into a report.
Hey Matt, we got a question here.
Yeah. So
is one of the standard reports? Is this one of the standard reports in Blue Mountain?
This is a report I did pull from our, I suppose you can call them templatized reports, or it's a report that we created in the past. I'm not sure if it was.
It's not an out-of-the-box report, so it's an example report. Obviously, there's modifications and finalizations to be made to it, and it's the way we treat the majority of our reports. So we can take this, we can interlace like the work histories with that, which is one request, or leave it just as is. Potentially some more sophisticated things you might want to do might be to be able to drill down in on the version of the logbook entry. The neat part is ultimately it's a relational database in the back end, and that information is in there. So each customer, we expect to want to look at this potentially a little bit differently. To build the report is not that difficult, though. It's a pretty straightforward report.
We have a question.
Okay. You can announce that you're going to unmute.
Yeah, so we have a question from individual. I'm going to unmute your line. So,
hello.
Remigio? Hello, go ahead. You have a question?
Remigio. Yeah, sure. It is possible to see this report from a mobile device?
You can have this from our supported. So we support IE11, which will give you the ability to access RAM with the same format user interface that you would see on a laptop on a Windows Surface device, or a Safari with iPad as well. So you could access these reports from those mobile devices.
Okay, and is that just access, or can I update actual information from the device?
You can enter data from those devices, absolutely.
Okay. Attach reports, pictures, and so forth.
Yeah, so the full functionality is available on if you're using the system mobily. The only requirement is that you use a supported browser on a tablet or a laptop. So the form factor is optimized for desktop/tablet usage. It's not optimized for like a phone. So if you're trying to use that and kind of pinch and zoom on that, you may actually find some of it actually may work, but it's not really optimal to use it there. So as long as you're sticking with the supported browser, you can access the functionality application just like you would at your desktop, if you still have a desktop.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, Ramiro?
No.
Well, just one more. I mean, this report can be customized or filtered in different ways.
Yeah. So this report is just for demonstration purposes, but this goes for any reports that you could think of. They are customizable through SQL Server reporting services. If you know how to do SQL coding, or if somebody in your organization knows how to do it, they can make these on their own. Certainly, Blue Mountain has reporting services that we can do in-house to assist you in creating these to your specifications.
Okay, thanks.
We have a couple of other questions here, Matt.
All right, Rami, I'm going to go ahead and mute your line there. Thank you for the questions, and I'm going to go to.
Is it possible to make one common logbook for several assets, like equipment for maintenance, and same logbook for calibration sensors?
So currently, I might know who asked that. There is one logbook to rule them all, if I can say, and it would belong to the equipment or asset record. Currently, there's functionality that we're talking in development currently where you may have different types of logbooks, but that's still under development, of course. But currently, we have one logbook, and you can configure that logbook with the fields. And there was 2 tabs that you saw there. If you wanted to have one tab for some specific thing as a part of the other tab, you could certainly configure it that way and have that distinguished look and feel to it on that one logbook.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and we're certainly interested in getting some more feedback from some others as well. So when we built this feature, we basically took that paper logbook that we saw out there on machines, and customers asked us, hey, can we just enter this electronically into your system? Well, absolutely, you can. So even before we introduced the feature, technically you could with one of our work records. But what we wanted to do, most did not want to have to go through a work order to enter a logbook. So we introduced the feature to try to simplify and streamline that process. So we started with a simple logbook. There's obviously some configurability in that form to match up if you have some variation there. But what's interesting is the request that we've heard recently of different types of logbooks that may be laid out completely different. So if you have that scenario, we are very interested in getting that information from you. If you can send us some samples of those different types and why they're different, and if there's some commonality between them. Those are some of the things that our development team would like to see, as they look at potential improvements to this feature in the future.
Thank you. And for the folks that don't know, Keith Kyle is in the house. He's assisting me with some of these questions, which is great. Thank you, Keith. So there is another question here. Can the next entry on a logbook be withheld until the previous entry is reviewed? Which is a great question. To my knowledge, and currently, I don't believe there is a hold on that review until the next entry is made. I think users will be able, and there's nothing stopping them from entering another entry, even though if another entry would be reviewed still. That might be a procedural thing more so than anything, but currently answer is no.
Yeah, we haven't heard that use case. The use case that we worked with originally was you have this logbook and you go through a page, somebody's responsible for reviewing it. They may review that whole page and sign off on that, flip to the next, and basically document that they're reviewing those log steps. But it's interesting, if that's something that procedurally you may have today to require that, that's another maybe workflow around logbooks type of detail that we'd like to hear more about.
Absolutely. Which Brad's over here diligently taking some notes. This is great. Brad's, yep. And so there's another question here. For a chain of custody, so they want to know, and I'm kind of using my imagination here, is this asset went to this user and they want to use logbooks to track that, who has custody of that over a period of time. I'm at the belief that the logbooks would be a good way to do that. It would need to be a couple of things, though. Reports designed specifically to be formatted to show you that history in your logbook entries. You might have to have a procedure in there to say this is like a check-in, check-out sort of thing. But there's other ways, and logbook's not necessarily the way, it's a way. Even through general rule design, you can have your equipment being checked in and checked out just by having those states in your workflow as another way to have custody or chain of custody for tools or equipment. Yeah, this is a good question. So with that last question, did you want me to unmute your line, or did I answer your question efficiently? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So okay. Just wanted to make sure. I don't want to put you on the spot there. So they just keep coming in, and please feel free to keep asking them. Can you find logbook entries with a query? Currently, no. Logbook entries are not. They're grid level views, and we're not able to access those through query design. But I do believe that is something that we are in discussion with in our development team.
So right now, like Matt showed, you can do queries against assets and find those that have logbooks that need reviewed, get to that level, and then the reporting tool is what takes you to the next level and really what you need. If you need that specific type of filtering. But once you open it up into building a report around that, then you can see the information however you want. Again, it's stored in RAM in a relational database. So like any relational database, a report can be built around that to display it as you wish. That being said, for future versions, we are looking at ways to expand the capability of the built-in query engine to do some more of this internally. So that's yet to come yet. That's not in R3, but in the future we're looking towards that. Yeah.
So the question here is saying, if the logbooks are used as opposed to work records, and correct me if I'm going the wrong direction with this, but it sounds like in lieu of a work record, you would use a logbook entry to track that activity. That's entirely up to you. If that's what you want to, if you want to use logbooks in that fashion, maybe it's only certain types of work that you want to track in logbooks and use work records for other matters. Again, that's something that you could talk with your, if you're currently implementing or if you're new to the software, we could have a one-to-one chat with that and kind of go down the path of what is the best approach to tackle those needs. Logbooks are certainly there, and the work records are obviously there. So maybe it's a combination of two, or maybe it's one over the other. But again, that's something we could discuss.
It's a good question. I mean, technically you could use our work records, like I said before, to enter what would be log entries. But there's a little more kind of meaning around the work records. Oftentimes they're scheduled on a pre-approved interval. They're considered work orders. Certainly on the maintenance side, they'll use that terminology with an approved workflow to go through, whereas logbook entries might be something simple as, hey, I just used this for the day, or I cleaned this. Just simple daily type of activities that, for those types of reasons, users have continued to use, those paper-based logbooks out there. So we had two choices: just, certainly allow them today to use the work record system as it existed, or add the logbook entry capabilities in here to simplify that and have it mirror more closely to what that paper process was in the effort to eliminate that paper process. To be able to enter simple entries, to record, hey, this is who did it, what they're doing, and keep it as simple as that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, you can get in touch with your RSM and talk more to that point. But there are another question here. Does our concurrent licensing model also provide the functionality of the logbook? Yes, you would have to have it would consume a concurrent licensing, or it would require a seat at the table in order to enter a logbook entry, and that's for all the functionality in the system except for request. As you all well know, requester licenses are unlimited, but anything other than that would be a concurrent license. Okay. Next one, and I may need help with this one. Is it possible to add a record automatically? With this one, is it the record of the logbook record automatically, or is it something other than that? And I may unmute the lines to help explain that one a little bit.
I want to ask, for example, we're using maintenance form weekly, and we must write it down every week into paper-based system. So it's possible to push some button that this particular weekly record be automatically put into this logbook.
Okay, so you want to have something automatically put in the logbook. Currently, no, that's not a possibility, but certainly a good point.
In that case, what we probably recommend you use is just the regular built-in work record functionality. For example, there's a general event that you can use that can be scheduled weekly and automatically added into your backlog. And it can have a different simplified workflow than, say, your maintenance and calibration records. Right now, we don't have anything built into the logbook to auto-generate logbook entries. But it sounds like, in your case, if I understand it, it's like a reoccurring logbook entry that you would want created, and I would assume, even though it's created, you'd still want somebody to come in there and fill it off and check to say they actually did it.
Yeah, and we have additional activities like cleaning, like flashing, so now we're using only paper-based, so we want to go to this electronic one, and we can see all activities, what was did with this equipment.
Yeah.
How many unique items like that do you have? Like how many unique entries would you have for the logbook in that?
Oh, actually like 10 entries per week as a minimum.
And I think that goes back to one of the questions we had prior was, are there different types of logbooks? Which I feel like this kind of closely touches upon, possibly.
Yeah, well, possibly. I think I understand what he's asking for with it. He needs to, the users just want a really quick way to put in there that they're cleaning the system, or that they're dusting this, or that they're doing, it's a very quick entry. It's always going to be the same text every time. It's just something to stop the user from having to click so many times and type in so much information.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line again. Did we answer your question sufficiently there?
Yes, thank you.
Were there any? Yeah, you're very welcome. Okay. So there was another question from Mio. I'm going to unmute you here in a second as soon as I find your name. There you are. Okay. We're all ears.
Okay. We have here a question. It is possible to see the information on the logbook in any graphical way to see some trends on it? or statistics? Because here we have, or we can see just the plain information, not in a graphical way.
What would you be looking to, what kind of metric would you be looking to trend or track? Can you give us an example?
Machine, or
for example, you know, if how many times this equipment has been intervened, and or if we could add some other fields, like for example, the section where the machine has been more frequently intervened, or things like that.
So there's incidents where a machine stopped for a variety of reasons, and if I understand correctly, right today you probably record a logbook entry when that occurs.
Yes, we have categorized codes. So we normally do like a Pareto at a long period of time. For example, in the last 3 months or from the last intervention, what was the behavior on that specific code, let's say, or different codes.
When you use the word intervention, are you considering that today in your process today, excuse me, a work order?
No, it's just a log entry. It's
okay.
It's not specific a work action.
So I go back to the same statement. Is a report? It can be graphical. If you want it to be a chart or a bar graph, however you want to see the data, reports can be designed and customized to meet those requirements. Or just a table view. The data needs to be in RAM in order for the report to pull it out. And I have an example Pareto chart if you'd like to see it as an example here.
This report's not geared around the logbook, but it'll give you a good example of you know how we can make it look inside SQL reporting services.
Okay.
So just a simple Pareto analysis here of, in my example, I have it as what states are my records, maintenance work records in particular, how long are they in these given states, and I want to know where these bottlenecks are. So in this example, my bottleneck is the review state, and I might discover more of why that is, but this chart kind of gives me that picture, you know. Likewise with your logbook entries, you could have this as a Pareto. Where are my problem areas? Where are 80% of my problems with, you know, or 80% of my states in my case, and 20% of the problems are in the first 2 or 3.
So in your case, would you be looking to see perhaps how much downtime is associated with specific intervention types?
Yeah.
Okay. And that would be very easy to do. You know, in the logbook itself, as Matt said, there's some fields you don't see there. Not quite as many that we have on the asset field, certainly, but there are fields that we can purpose and configure, and one of those certainly could be downtime induced by whatever that logbook entry is, and perhaps an intervention type. And once you have that data on a logbook, it's in our relational database. We can build a report just like Matt showed around that.
So another question, this reporting feature is available on Blue Mountain on free charge, or is extra package on Blue Mountain?
We provide it as a service, and it would be a time and material.
Okay. Time and material.
Yeah, it would be a service we provide you to create these reports based off of your specifications, and it depends how complex the report is, or you know that definitely plays into a factor how much time it takes to build.
So there's a couple sides of this. There would be a little bit of time to do an analysis with you to determine, you know, if you're not using the logbook feature today, what kind of modifications would we need to make for it to suit your usage. Spec out the report with you, you know, determine what are the metrics that you're trying to track, and then to build and test those reports, as well as enable those configurations that we uncovered during the analysis. So it's a pretty common workflow that we would go through with a customer to expand the usage of the system. And again, it comes down to the scope of the effort. And what we do is have a discussion with you, and to the best of our abilities, we estimate the time that it would take to do that, take into account maybe your validation requirements from your quality group, and give you a quote for service.
But also from the previous statement, this is in the database, so in RAM, so somebody knows how to build that report. It could also be an option, right? Or is this an exception?
So the report that Matt showed you is not an out-of-the-box report, so you're not going to find that. Okay, that's an example, an implementation of a logbook-style report.
Okay.
So, Maria, I apologize. We have to go. Yeah, you're very welcome, and we're happy to talk more with you. But I want to get to some other questions and move on down here to Victoria. Victoria, you're on the line.
Well, hi, this is Victoria. I mean, Victoria's here in Armando.
Understood.
Yeah, kind of a deep voice from Victoria, right?
You got a deep voice. That's hilarious.
So I'm really interested in and I think it suits for what we were interested in doing over here is gearing it towards a check-in, check-out system for our standards. What we really want to do is implement barcode functionality to where we can scan, 3 or 4 items, maybe a little bit more. Does it have that integrated functionality to where would it require a special script or code to where we scan once and it drops down to the next field? And my second question is, can we implement icons or quick view type deals when we open up an asset and we can readily see that it's checked out or checked in?
So to have that check-in, check-out, and logbooks are one way to do it. I would feel that the perhaps the alternative might, and this will be something we would have to converse with as well. Barcode functionality is somewhat limited in RAM currently. It's a simple scan, and it would look up a record. It's a quicker lookup of our records. Is what a barcode scan would do in our system.
Right.
Not to say that we're not looking at doing something more in the future, but in our current system, it would be a quick lookup.
It would get us to the asset quicker. That's about it, right?
Correct. Yes,
okay.
That's precisely right.
No, go ahead.
I was going to pull up a logbook entry screen because Keith has a point here.
Right click.
So I'm going to an equipment record that has a logbook entry in it. So.
Yeah, actually close that and go and create a new one.
Create a new one, okay. No problem. Okay.
Okay, so there's a second tab there that we didn't dive into yet called Selected Assets. And we made that a grid for a couple reasons here. So by default, there's the asset that you came into to enter the logbook. What you can do is add multiples to this. So if you have maybe 3 or 4 of these standards that you're checking out at that same time, you want to make that logbook entry one time, that's a usage for this area. So if you click on the Add Asset, Matt,
okay.
Click on the asset there. Basically, you have access to your queries here to access and select that. So you might have a query for standard, filter that down, and then you could select multiples. And all that's going to do is still going to create, let's say you select 5 of these, it's going to create 5 individual logbook entries for each of those equipment records.
Yeah, within that one logbook entry, as opposed to making 5 separate ones.
You will see it in each individual logbook when you do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, Keith. Thank you. Were there any other questions, Victoria?
So the second part of that was, is there a way to, we were trying to see if you could see that it's checked out from just the asset record level. Is there like a flag for the logbooks or an icon that shows up?
There would be a flag that states that a logbook entry would need reviewed.
Oh yeah, there are two flags that I'm aware of. There's a need reviewed, and then there's reviewed.
Okay.
I think it's what reviewed and reviewed.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Go back to my question. So moving on to the next question here. Where did I? Trends and graphics, which I believe we answered a lot of these already. Can you create a schedule that is linked to a logbook entry? Very novel idea. In fact, I believe this could be resolved, or a solution could be is you have an event record that you call logbook entry, and you can schedule that event. And what one would do is when that event comes around or that schedule comes due, you know it's time to make a logbook entry. Is a way to define that process. And maybe, considering, Brad's in the room writing some notes here, maybe some other ideas can come about that. But currently, that's how I would handle that in our current system. Question. Are there? Let me see. Let me go up a little bit. Okay, so there was a question here about how do I know how many logbooks are created? I had in my example back in RAM a query that I've designed. In fact, this query is a bit more complex, and I'll actually edit directly. So I made a query that says all logbooks, but this is really looking at all my assets that have logbook entries. So my criteria is I have some nested queries involved with this to help me define it. With these flags that Brad mentioned earlier about, and there was a question about it, a needs reviewed and a reviewed, those two flags will come on and off as logbooks get entered, but or the entries get entered. But this query is designed to show me all those logbook entries, whether it's checked off or not checked off. But as the result of this, I have all my assets that have a logbook, essentially. So you can see with the flags on the left side of this, you can have it in the query, and it'll tell you, what's going on as far as the logbook goes. But again, if you click inside of these, it'll take you to the asset record. Yeah. Good question. Okay. That's all the questions, unless there's any other hands raised. I know we're out of time, but there was a lot of great discussion here, a lot of great questions. This hopefully it won't be something that stops. We would love to encourage more of these conversations, especially with logbooks. And I know Drexel mentioned in the next slide there about other events like this that will talk about additional functionality in RAM that may benefit you in some fashion. But I want to thank everybody for joining, and if there are any questions, you can get in touch with us. You know where we're at. And Drexel, you don't have anything to say? Well, thank you everyone, and have a great day.